Welcome, everyone, to episode 366 of Just Joshing. I'm your host, Joshua Pentalaresco. I write stuff in Podcast 2. Today, well, you heard her on Sunday read from Tattoos, but now Stacy Overby joins us for a heck of an interview here. This is definitely one of the better interviews I've had this year, I think. Stacy's a really cool person. She does a lot of cool things, and I'm using cool a lot. She helps children, and during this time, it's a really interesting thing that she's doing here in terms of helping and aiding people, and I think that's a really, really cool. This is the kind of essential job that I think everybody respects, and although we are respecting, I think, workers more right now, the fact of the matter is there was a lot more respect for nurses before, and I think there's even more so now, which basically tells you that they're underpaid, because they're always underpaid, and we're always underpaid in general, so that's life. But basically what I wanted to say is Stacy's got a really cool book out, Tattoos. If you listen to her read it, we'll talk about that as well, and a few other things. I think I'm going to talk about all the other cool stuff I'm doing after this, but for now, let's get to our conversation with Stacy, shall we?
This episode of Just Joshing is sponsored by Indie Imprint. Indie Imprint supports creators by creators. Whether you are writing a book or creating a video game, Indie Imprint works with its clients to produce, edit, and present their projects to the world. For more information, check out their website at www.indieimprint.com.
So, the recorder now is officially on, so all the incriminating stuff now can be told on the air. Because if we're going to do incriminating, we might as well get to the good stuff, right?
Get to the good stuff. Either that or I better watch what I say. One of the two.
The other one's too hard.
That is true. That is very true.
The other one's too hard. Like so like I said, I'm going like for me when this all hit, I kind of just went back to the like mentality of when I was in Arizona when I went through my real hard times and was getting my ass kicked. And I'm like, well, everybody's about to get their asses kicked, including me to some extent. It's not going to be like generating money is going to be very difficult for the next year. Not impossible. Like I've certainly already seen some things make me go, this might not be quite as hard as I think it's going to be, right? Things have just had this tendency to fall into place sometimes. But I digress. That's other stuff that doesn't need to be stated here. What is important though is I realized that if I go back to the biggest mistake I made last time was I didn't allow for the possibility that good things could come in a bad situation. I didn't give myself permission to think in those terms. So when adversity comes like this, it forces people to reevaluate how they've done things up until this point, because let's be honest, it's not going to work anymore. Not at least as we know it. So, exactly. So then we gotta go one way or the other here. We gotta go and say to ourselves, okay, we can go the exact same way we're going and go nowhere for at least a year or longer. All right, or we can recalibrate and redirect our energies into other things. And when we do this, although we may not necessarily see it right away, what's going to tend to happen is people are going to notice, and people are going to, whether they realize this or not, latch themselves onto you, and then suddenly these opportunities that you didn't think were there, poof, suddenly appear. And as time goes on, too, people are going to figure out their own equilibrium in this time, and new ways of doing things are going to show up as time goes on. So,
absolutely.
So the fact that I'm in this mental state now is going to put me into the best opportunity to jump into those things later as these things develop. And who knows? I am developing things as well. So one thing leads to another, and if I go in there thinking there's an abundance of opportunities, every day I wake up, I get a new one. And even if it doesn't work out, that's okay too. Right?
Yeah. It's kind of interesting in a way because in some ways the job I have now working at the hospital is a result of a whole bunch of bad things happening.
Yes.
I kind of laugh at it because back I work in addiction medicine.
Okay.
I'm a clinic supervisor. I've worked as a drug and alcohol counselor for going on 11 years now. Most of the time, I've worked with kids.
So you're super tough and super sensitive at the same time. Gotcha.
It's a very interesting balance you keep.
Yes.
That I will say for sure.
Yeah.
And I was working for a small nonprofit. Last August, got laid off. Okay. Worked out, because, I could be around for my 7-year-old starting 2nd grade and, walk him to school, some of that kind of stuff for a little bit while I'm getting a new job, right? Well, about that time, my father-in-law, he'd been fighting nobody knew what for quite a while. Turns out he'd had cancer. Nobody caught it for quite a while.
Lovely.
Yeah. Partly connected. He'd actually served some time in Vietnam. And they're pretty sure this was connected to that. So he ended up passing away about a week and a half before I started this new job. So I get laid off. I'm like, okay, shoot, I need to find a new job. I need to work. Start applying for a couple things, saw this one. I'm like, okay, I'll try for it. Didn't realize what I was getting myself into when I applied for it. Went to the interview when, amidst my father-in-law being in and out of the hospital at this particular point in time, when, oh boy, I don't know that this is going to be the job for me, because I don't think I'm qualified for it. Apparently they thought otherwise. Because then I get offered the job in between, my father-in-law being in the hospital. I take the job. My father-in-law passes away right before I start the job. So, and then I get this, and a few other things happen, and COVID, and here we are. But it's interesting, because in looking back, it's like, it was a series of not so very nice things that happened in a lot of ways, and yet, if it had to happen, I'm good with how it happened. Because I ended up having about a month off where, while my father-in-law was sick and when he died, and I was able to just tell my mother-in-law, look, you need me, just call me. It's a matter of me throwing my shoes on and getting down to the hospital. I can do that. I can do that fast. Because I don't have anything else I'm doing. I have a job, so I don't need to look for one. I just can't start it yet. What do you need? So it worked out really well to be able to support her, get through all of that without having to worry about working in the middle of it all.
So, and sometimes, like I said, I go back to my first time going through my own personal adversity. Adversity kind of creates a diamond, right?
Yep.
Now, I'm in a unique spot. I want to spend time with my family, so I'm home. I don't have an official day job right now, but I also have very little expenses. So I can last a very long time in my current situation, right? Not forever, but a very long time. And so I'm like, well, I'm free to do what I want. Wow, this is such a weird thing. I can't go hug somebody, but yet I can do anything I want right now. Huh. Weird. Yeah, exactly. Weird, but okay. These are the rules of today. Yes, these are the rules. So let's try and create the last. And again, every day I've woken up since I've come here. I got recruited by a marketing company. Whether I get the job or not does not matter. It's just the fact that I got recruited. Actually, that does say something really interesting right there.
Yep.
I'm hosting a creative quarantine every 2 Thursdays now, which is something I never thought I'd actually do. My podcast is now 3 days a week. I do a story time podcast, which you may or may not be aware of course, right? Right? So now it's added. My views have never been less than 10 people since I've started, but it's usually been much higher every day. So my numbers are actually going up. I got a novel I'm releasing at the end of the month. I got published, like you read the article, I got published, my first freelance article that got published. So I can't say I've done too bad in 2 weeks.
No.
Right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, right? And then even today, I had another job. So I woke up this morning, I go grab a bike to go out. It's snowing in Ontario in April. Like, you gotta be kidding me. So I start going, right? I figure I'll go to the gas station, get some gloves, go. But as I go to the gas station, my seat actually shrinks. Like, it lowers, and it's like, oh, I can't now use my bike anymore. I'm in the one city in the country where there's no transit. So and the job I'm going for isn't like a great job. It's more like it gets me out of the house job, right? And that's it. It's not something I need. It's not something I'm. So I'm like, is it really worth me going today based on everything that's just happened in the last 20 minutes? Probably not. And then I talked to my dad today, and he's like, well, you can always call and ask that you can start when transit comes. I was like, honestly, nah. You know what? It's one of those situations where you just look at it. Okay, and here's the other thing too. This is the flip side. It's my fourth. Like, I have what I call a crappy resume, and I have what I call a good resume. Right. My crappy resume got me this job in like 4 tries. So I can't really hate, right, how things have worked out for me, even when it's failed, because seriously, I mean, my jacket was white, became this giant snow jacket after the amount of snow that was coming down in the morning. So it was like, you know, I mean, if that's the worst thing that's happened to me so far, I really can't complain. That's not bad, right? So, yeah, I haven't needed to go government assistance. I mean, I might have to do that in a month or two, but I mean, I'm not in a hurry. I don't have to hurry into it, right? And a lot can happen in a month or two, right? And that's just it, right? Right? So I'm not really. I have no concerns. And that's something I think that like I'm in this very, really weird spot, and it's like, take advantage, create the best opportunities for myself I can, meet amazing people like yourself. Why not?
Yeah.
You know?
You know, I believe that there are times that when we look backwards at things, it's like, hey, wait a minute, maybe some of this happened for a reason. Mm-hmm. Might not be super clear at the time, but
sometimes it still sucks.
and it still sucks. It's not necessarily that it's fun.
Yeah.
There's some kind of rhyme and reason to it that you don't really get to see till afterward.
Yeah, well, you know, here's the ultimate, I think, good news about what's going on right now. Everything as we've done it before is changing, and some of these changes are going to stick because honestly, some of it's better. It's not all of it, but some of it for sure is better, right? And like if I'm a small business owner, I'm looking at a storefront, for example. I'm going to completely reevaluate how important that really is going forward. Because also property values as we know it in America, in North America, has probably gone, like, in the long run. See, initially they're going to skyrocket, but the reality is, in a lot of cases, the need for it isn't going to be so great anymore. If you're a corporation and you're getting most of your work done at home, why would you have an office building? It's going to completely reevaluate how people think about how they do business, how they approach things. I mean, if you can embrace this now, you will be so much farther ahead. I think later, when everything just forces you to catch up, it's like you don't actually need this anymore.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I kind of have to laugh because like I said, I have a 7-year-old. He's in 2nd grade, and the school district. I love his school. His school is awesome. I'm not as big of a fan of the district as a whole. This just reinforces why. Because Minnesota, we're under distance learning till at least I think it's May 3rd or 4th or something to that effect. And it's like, okay, we should have seen this coming. Should have thought through this a little bit. His school district has never once even thought about how would you do distance learning until all of a sudden now, and they were on spring break. So when the order came down, because it was originally came down, Governor Walz gave the order for the schools to be closed for 2 weeks. One of those 2 weeks, they were already on spring break. That was spring break week. So then they brought the teachers back the second week, and at that point they went, oh boy, what do we do? They've never done anything as far as the distance learning goes before, and it's like, oh, you have got to be kidding me. We're one of the largest school districts in the entire state, and we've never thought about this? We live in Minnesota, for Pete's sake. Snow days are a guarantee. There'll be at least a few.
Yeah. You'd think that, right? But you see, I've learned something about human nature, and it's a very important thing. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I literally, just before I talked to you, I was talking to a friend of mine. She's currently living here. I go, I've been doing nothing but embracing the opportunities of the last 2 weeks. And she goes, really? It's like, yeah, because I've recalibrated, right? I just, and that's just some of the things that have happened to me. I've just recalibrated to it, and just like, well, this is my approach, and this is what I'm doing. But a lot of people don't have that. Not have that ability. They're like, well, this has always worked for me. Why would I change? And it never occurs to people, one day, everything's got a finite lifespan. Everything. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Everything's got a finite lifespan. How we do things has to change eventually, completely. It's part of life. It's part of evolution. It's part of everything has a time and a place. And then when it's done, it's done. And we've gotten out of the habit as a culture of going, well, what's next?
Yep.
And that's what happened to your, and that's what happened with your school board. See, they thought to themselves, this will always be this way. We don't have to think about this. And now it's like, oh shit, we really do have to think about this.
Yep, because their approach to it always prior to this had been, well, we're Minnesota, we'll build in an extra 6 days of school, beyond what's absolutely required. So that way, if there's a snow day, we just close school and it's okay. And it's like, with all of the opportunities out there, why are we not taking advantage of them? Come on.
But see, this is why I say necessity is a very important. Like, necessity creates these things, yep. Right? This is why adversity is required, because what happens, we all are guilty of this. I certainly am. I get comfortable, and when I get comfortable, I don't do shit. Right? You just don't.
Oh, exactly. I mean, that is absolutely a part of human nature. Is just no. I'm comfy. I like this. I don't want to change it because it's familiar, and that's that.
That's that. This. You're a counselor, right? I mean, this is one of those things that cycles over and over. I actually said the biggest 2 things most people have to overcome in their lives are personal fears and familiarity. And sometimes they're the same thing. Sometimes, right? I have a friend, and I love her to death. She's a gifted massage therapist. She does a lot of cool disciplines, puts a lot of stuff together. But what holds her back, and I told her this, and now I'm like, I almost want to kick her now, because if she had done this, she'd probably have business right now, more business than she has right now. If you start doing videos showing your techniques, you start actually interacting with people in a digital construct, you could create clients for yourself, even from a distance, even if what all you're doing right now is teaching. Well, guess what? There's money in that right now, right? There is, right?
Yep, and you've got a lot of people who, hey, I'm stuck at home. I don't have as much to do. I don't have different hobbies or whatever, because mine is going out and playing golf or going to the movies or whatever, where guess what? We can't do that. People are bored. People are willing to learn new things, because
why not? No, but even so, or even this. Hey, listen, my back's still bothering me. I can't go to a massage therapist right now, but is there a way I can do it to myself? Can you show me how?
Yeah.
So
or have my partner do something.
Yeah. So to my massage therapist friend, if you are listening to this, I've been trying to drill this into you for 2 years. This is why. Things like this. This is why. Right. So, and yes, I am that kind of like I told you, I am that kind of asshole. So I am really evil. But that's just it. Like right now, and then even me, like I gotta look at, okay, so I want to do comic books for a living. I would love to do comic books on some level for a living.
Yeah.
Well, so problem. How can I do a physical comic book right now? I cannot. Solution, Instagram. Right?
There you go.
The right solution, Instagram. I can't maybe do a physical comic. So I have this really terrible, like, I am actually doing this right now. My sister gave me an art book called To New Beginnings. And right now drawing ice cream cones and a few other, like, just random shape stuff. So I'm going to actually, I actually secretly, I've had this comic in my head for years, but right now I'm out of excuse not to do it. So I'm going to actually draw, it's a comic called Zippy the Dragon. The story is, it's about a very terrible artist trying to draw a dragon. And the dragon is actually talking to me early, so so this is going to seem like a big ripoff right away. It's like, you'll just see the, like, lettering, hey you, why are you doing this? And this is all, like, this is going to be deliberately terrible at the beginning. Right, because I am terrible, right? So I'm not gonna hide it. I'm going to use it to tell the story, right?
Yep.
Right. Then I'm going to draw the dragon's like face, and he's not going to be happy with his face. And then as I eventually get to the point where I'm drawing out the dragon, and he goes, "All right, that's awesome. So what about the rest of the world?" And I'm like, "What do you mean the rest of the world? It can't be just yeah, right." But it's a meta story between the artist and his art, right? And the story is it's about a dragon who drawn. But the thing is, what eventually starts to happen is once I start, and this is going to be when I get actually good, if I ever get actually, or at least we'll go with confident. Okay, we'll go with confident. We'll go with confident. I start drawing other things into the world, and what's going to eventually start happening is the dragon's going to interact more with his world. And as time goes on, he's going to forget about the creator completely. The world will become the story, and then the creator takes a step back until the very end of the dragon's life.
Nice.
I think there's something to be said about, and I can do that on Instagram. I can do that on Webtoon. I can do that. But you gotta think in terms of a mobile construct. With even okay, as an author, we have to think in terms as a mobile construct. Ebooks don't make a lot of money, and right, and generally because they're cheap, they're just digital files. But the fact of the matter is, I think we're screwing up, and this is where the bookstores not being there right now is a good thing for us. We actually have to figure out how to market to a broader audience digitally, and being more mobile and more brand conscious as a business, right? And I think this is going to force us to actually learn how to do that in a way that, like, I've been very fortunate. I've established my podcasting platform, so I can make an ass of myself here, and people will listen to me. Which I'm not actually sure how that works exactly, but I'm good at that, right? So
it just does.
It
Don't
just does.
question it.
Yeah, now I've learned to be humble. Sometimes I ask why, but I've learned to be humble. I'll be grateful for what gifts I have. But the point I'm getting at, right, is I've already started to see, even years prior to this, the value of mobility, right? And by mobility, I mean the fact that we can take our brands and our properties into as many different places as possible. And I think what's going to have to happen now going forward for artists is figuring out ways to do that on our own or with a collaborative to succeed.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially, I would say the artist community as a whole, whether it's authors, musicians, visual arts, I don't care. Pick your art. I mean, I think it's going to have to be these collaborative things, that we keep building and changing and adapting to. What do we need to do? I mean, it's because there is truth to there's tons of memes out there now of, see, look at the value of arts. You'd be bored to death if we took away books and movies and music and all this stuff right now, right? So yeah, I mean, I think it's absolutely going to be something that we can't look at each other as, oh, that's the competition. Or things like this.
That's a very antiquated way of looking at it, because I can't offer what you offer. I just can't. I mean, I can write a good story, but we'll take the same concept and we'll come up with our own versions of it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Mine might involve. I have killer cupcakes in my novel in progress. I might not like mine might in the story of the similar concept. I might come up with something like an evil circus gang. I don't know, just because that's just how I think. You, on the other hand, might come up with something a little bit more gangster or post-apocalyptic or like who knows, right? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
We still
I can't tell you how many times I've written notes of, hey, here's a cool story idea, and then when I go back to start writing it, and then I look at the note and I went, wait a minute, that's not what I wrote. Hold on. Right? I mean, that just because, okay, fine, you stole, which I hate that term, my idea, you're still not telling the same story.
No, absolutely not.
Nobody can.
No, and that's totally it, right? Right? And,
I mean, yeah.
yes.
I mean, I think any art there's a piece of the artist that's left in the art. You know, when you really work and you really do it, there's a piece of the artist left in the art. And as a result, that means there's no way to have two identical things.
Not at all. Like then that's the best part. I can tell the story of Percival in my own way, and it'll look like nothing like what came out originally. And same thing. There's only one Stacy Overby story, and there's only one Josh Pantelleresco story. And maybe in my case, it's thank God. Like I still think like the mold is like been like shattered and like never again. Right, but I mean the thing about that is right is our voices, who we are. There's no one like us ever, and that is what an artist brings to the table. On a business level, when we make it intellectual property, where we have to get smarter, and this goes back to the mobility, is how we tell our story and where we can tell these stories. Yep. Right? And yep. I think now more than ever, we have to really delve into what that actually is, because again, when this is all over, how many Barnes and Nobles are going to reopen? I don't know. I doubt it's going to be all of them, right? Yeah. I doubt it. I sincerely doubt it. That all said, how many independent bookstores are going to open? I don't know. But you know what I do know is going to still be around in 2 years? Video games. You know what else I know is still going to be around in 2 years? Music. You know what else I'm going to know is going to be around 2 years? Podcasts like from assholes like myself. So how can we take our property and figure out how to tell our stories so that people will not only respond to them but pay for them as well? And that's business. That's pure business hat right there. But I think that's something that really needs to be looked at right now. And how can this apply to what I call the mobile world? I think we're all now on our own like spaceships, and we're just going. And the goal to get wherever we got to go is how fast can we drive our Starship Enterprise to the destination to deliver our product. Yep. I mean, I think the other piece that I think will definitely help some of that is that I think there's a social shift that is happening. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because we had, in general, as a society, I mean, I think there's been a lot of times where we've had, let's focus on sports. Mm-hmm. Sports has their place. Don't get me wrong. You know, but we got to pay these sports people multi-million-dollar contracts for what they're doing and whatnot. You know, and nobody can do any of that now. You know, everybody's resorting to watching old football games, old basketball games, whatever, because nobody can do it. You know, whereas, hey, wait a minute, that 99 cents for that book has kept me entertained all afternoon. Yep. Board games are going to have a giant renaissance, I think, in this too, actually, because because although I think board games have been quietly getting a giant renaissance since 2008 anyway. This is the last economic crisis, because here's the thing about board games: they're cheap, and the entertainment value is ours, right? I think they're going to have their thing. Again, video games, I feel, is still a hugely untapped art. I feel like interaction is the language of so books are imagination, visual, like sometimes visual, but there's a visual element to it. Games are visual, sound, and interaction, and books are visual and imagination. Right? So it's almost like books are a 2D version of a video game, which is actually a 3D version of how to tell a story. It's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I see it. And so I'm like, so what I'm looking at now is, okay, I got this book right now that's kind of, I try to make as much of a video game as possible. So the next step for me is to find someone to develop that into a video game. So I can see that story. Because again, if I have a book and you guys like how I tell a story in a book, great. But if you love how I tell the story in the video game, fantastic. Right? And that's it. It's not just about telling a story. It's about how many ways you can tell that story and how many different angles and dimensions. And I think this is, again, oppression or adversity, I think is actually the real word here. Adversity creates opportunity, right? To learn, to grow, and to rediscover things we take for granted.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes, I mean, you just look throughout history, you can see some of that same pattern that keeps repeating itself in that way. I mean, there's these terrible things that happen, yes. And there's no doubt, there's no question, there are terrible things that happen. And look what comes of them.
And that's it, right? It's one of those situations where you have to be very honest about how to put this. You have to be very honest of like looking out, taking chicken shit, for lack of a better term, and making a chicken salad, like turning it into a chicken salad. And sometimes there's some amazing things you never would have discovered, right? You never would have discovered if had not been the case. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, bat guano. That makes explosives.
Yes. Who knew?
Who knew?
Right? And so, yeah. Sorry, I got a very nice compliment on my review. I did a review for Plume by Kaylin Smith, and I think and it's a great graphic novel. It's really great, and I was shocked because it was free. That's a book I paid for. I would pay for, it's great. And I was like, okay, I have to review this. So I reviewed this, and she said some very nice things to me. Actually, as we were talking, it's like this is one of those. It's like, I appreciate you, and I'm so glad you enjoyed the series. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm in my day. That made my day. So it's like, yes. Again, good things still happening while I am going through it. I didn't get the crummy job today, but on the same token, my review came out, and I definitely made the day of somebody else, without even trying. And then tomorrow, we'll see what opportunities come my way, and again, going back to the full circle of all this, right? Everything's open right now. As weird as that might seem to some people right now, there's a lot wide open, because you know what? Everything's gone. So it's like, so now what do we do? And then it's like, whatever you want. Oh my god, that's awesome.
Awesome and scary.
Sure.
But awesome. Right? Yeah, I mean, it just kind of reminds me of what we're going through at the clinic right now. The main piece of the clinic that I run right now is an opioid treatment program. So most of what we do is methadone, some Suboxone type stuff. There's never been anything written for any of this.
Yes.
Even when you look at all of the different levels of state and federal regulation around what we do, nothing has anything with how do you deal with something like this. And it's, our department actually, for what we do, is pretty small. I have my practice manager, we have our medical director, and me and my clinic supervisor who supervises all our RNs. And it's like, or nurses, or RNs and LPNs. And it's like, we're all looking at each other going, okay, this is a really contagious thing. This is a really, can be a really scary thing. How are we going to manage this? There's no rule book. There's no nothing. Okay, well, let's figure out.
And I almost feel like a terrible person because this is wait, there's no rules about this right now? Cool. And I'm sorry that's my reaction because this is unknown territory. No one has a clear idea of where we're going, and that is so freaking wild, and I love it. And that sounds weird, but it's like this has been a discomfort zone thing that I think, in one real sense, the whole world is needed. Like right. I mean, yeah. And so for me, it's like, yeah, I would not wish this on anybody. I don't want to say that I'm happy that people are getting sick, because I'm not. But what I'm happy is that for the first time in a real long time, how we're doing things is being questioned from top to bottom. And so, like for example, and this is the other thing too. This is a thought I had. Although, yes, I know the negatives to this, but hear me out on this. There are currently about 5 billion people right now sitting in some various form of sitting at home, all over the planet right now, right? So that is 5 billion levels of brain power. Do you know how many problems people could solve right now if we just talk together about how we could solve them? And I'm talking everything from curing COVID. I'm not saying that necessarily that's going to happen, but the idea that people can attempt this challenge, there's not necessarily the need of much supervision or direction. We are in a culture now where there's literally no rules. So, okay, let's you and I figure out, figure out, okay, we can discover a new ice cream flavor right now. Who cares? And there's no rules right now, right? We can figure out how to communicate with each other about these different ideas about how the world works, because the longer this goes, the less likely normal is going to come back. So,
absolutely.
Right, the longer this goes. So, why then worry about trying to bring it back? What do we want to bring going forward? And you have literally, right now, 5 billion people that are currently capable of coming up with their thoughts, ideas. If we can get over this whole concept of finding how the world works, because really, who cares right now? No one knows how the world works, right? At this particular moment in time, the government says, we're going to give you money to live, but okay, let's think about this. I just mentioned some things earlier. What's property worth right now? Honestly, if no one's going to go in for businesses, if no one's going to go in for that, then if property is simply a place for people to live, then what is it actually truly worth versus, say, a business for businesses? That's a thought that needs to be, that's a question that should be being asked about, probably on a variety of levels. Number one. Number two, why? Like, why when we come back to, we're going to necessarily want to go back to the same jobs, the same things? Considering how much stuff is non-essential, is there stuff we want to bring back? And again, I don't want to, make people unemployed, but what really is essential right now? How we interact with people. Can we be more open to ideas, not less open to ideas, right? Hey, listen, there are people out there who believe that there are lizard people walking the planet. You know what? As crazy as that might sound, is it really any harm in that? No, not really. So, you know what? Why not figure out a better way of living and let live right now, so that when we get out of here, because you know what else is not going on right now? War.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah.
We don't need to go back to that. Do we really need to go back into Iran right now as the U.S. Army? Probably not. Do we need that? Here's a thought, right? So, you know what the U.S. soldiers would like to do right now, since they have the opportunity, help supply people and rebuild the infrastructure in the country, and there's a hell of an opportunity to do that right now, considering nobody's outside.
Yeah.
And these are just ideas I'm thinking off the top of my head, bullshitting with you. Could you imagine? But there are 5 billion people right now with all their own ideas on how to do things. Could you imagine the possibilities right now, right?
Yep.
And,
we can channel it the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. We just if we weren't busy fighting each other, even now, we could make the world a better place now. And hell, like I said, there's 5 billion people. If even a billion people heck, even a million people got together and said, "Hey, let's solve COVID," you think they couldn't? Even if they weren't educated, because honestly, that's a million people putting their minds and thoughts to the problem, right? Right? Again, they're not experts. Again, but do they necessarily need to be? No. Why? Right? That's a lot of processing power, right? It's right. So.
Well, and sometimes I think part of what happens too is that the experts get locked into a certain way of thinking about it.
Absolutely.
Right? Because they're the experts.
That's right.
And it takes somebody else coming along to go, well, what about this?
Yeah. Well.
Because you're not an expert.
The problem, a lot. It's interesting because if you look at a lot of the big medical discoveries, most of them did not come from the actual experts. Few of them did, but not a lot of them. Usually an outsider has come out and shown a different way of thinking that has forced the experts to reevaluate how things are being done, which tells you that maybe that way of thinking needs to occasionally be challenged from time to time. But not just in the medical, but I mean everything. Because honestly, going down one particular path is always it's too linear. And I always associate thinking, like the concept of just thinking things through, is almost I equate to what I learned in English literature. Like the line you read in the book is the tip of an iceberg. Usually, underneath there's it's what isn't said, how it's said here, and it influences what isn't said there. It's true with all forms of thinking, right? We can think along one path, but we only get a very tiny fraction of what is actually possible in that. And I'm just thinking, like I said, right now there are 5 billion people that are sitting at home. That's a lot of processing power that can go into a lot of things. And if we got away from fighting each other and we decided let's solve that, we could literally right now take the opportunity to solve each other's problems, and it would not, and it wouldn't cost us anything other than just listening to each other.
Yeah. I think the other thing that sometimes happens too is with experts is and I think to some extent people in leadership positions, is that you fall into that trap of I'm in charge, I'm the expert, you have to listen to me. Right? I'm the one who's got the answers. I mean, it's as a supervisor, I'm very aware that people come to me for answers. But we also have to be okay with going, you know what? I don't know. Let's figure it out.
The best supervisors I've ever worked with were the ones that actually didn't seem to do anything other than to let their workers be themselves. Those are usually the best supervisors. Because, so my last job I walked away from, I worked for this company for almost 10 years. I was in Calgary, and the way they ran things there, now don't get me wrong, there were days I kind of wondered, with the left hand and the right hand just one not to talk to each other that day, and sometimes, I mean, my nickname for the job was a sparkle muffin, so it tells you that sometimes I had to keep myself sane and entertained somehow, sometimes.
Yep.
But for all of that, they had the decency to treat me like, let me be myself. And they gave me the flexibility to do what I needed to do, and in turn, it made it very easy for me to work for them, right? Now, my last 6 months, I went to Vancouver. Now, originally, I was going to go to Vancouver to work in the film industry. Well, as you can tell right now, that's not exactly possible. That's why I'm not there anymore, right? But I knew. But again, the reputation of the place I went, of the company there, is very different than the reputation of the company where I was. Where I was in Calgary was a great environment, like top to bottom. Overall, it was an excellent environment to work, and that's a credit to not only the management, but also just to the middle management being smart enough to let their people be themselves. The middle management made there. Whereas if you look at where I was, and I'm not afraid to say this, there were parts of the middle management that were incredibly brilliant. They were very similar to what I experienced in Calgary, but my last shift, in part because they were overworked. They were definitely overworked and underpaid, and that's definitely a very common theme. But the other part of it too is just the management style was in such a way that it would try to wring out everything they could from their workers. So they never got the best results they could. Instead of doing that, if they honestly, and if they're listening to this, I'll say this: if you'd actually take the time to actually let your workers be themselves and give them a break that way, you would get a lot more efficiently done, right? And the best part is you wouldn't have to goad them to do it. It would be their idea.
Well, anytime, that's basic psychology right there.
Yeah.
You get somebody to buy in, and it's their idea, or buy into the idea.
That's
of course they're going to work harder.
Yeah, that's what a good supervisor does, though. That's what good supervision does. Good leadership does that on every level. You don't want to fight someone to get them to work. It's too much work, like legitimately, right? It's too much work. Instead, why not? Right? Like, why not figure out what kind of worker you got? It just takes a minute. Figure out what they will do and figure out what they won't do, and put them in the best positions to succeed. And every once in a while, they will surprise you, right? Because if you give them that comfort zone, you will let them be them, and you will have a more efficiently run company. So the second place, it wasn't so much. I treated it accordingly. We'll just leave it at that, right? Right? But again, the difference in leadership style is very apparent. Like, good supervisors, good leaders tend to be realized, like, my job isn't to really actually do the work or make people work. My job is to convince people it's in their best interest to do things a certain way. But beyond that, let them do their thing, right? And then I don't care, right? The job's done. Awesome. I don't have to yell at you now, right? And if a problem actually comes up and arises, it's a legitimate problem most of the time, and I don't feel so bad. It's not perfect. You're still going to hear about, well, such and such is a dick. You're going to hear that sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And you're going to be like, and you got to manage that to some degree, and maybe have a little shot of it, like something to drink down some of the things you hear. But for all of that, that's just part of the gig. But for all of that, the problems in your life are minimal, and that's really the goal.
Yep. Absolutely, it is.
Right.
I tell my staff, you know what? If I'm screwing something up, tell me. You guys know this better than I do. My job is just to keep us all going in the generally same direction.
And I don't want problems, right? 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 I don't want problems. I don't want issues. I would just rather we all got along. If there is a real problem, I'll help you come solve it. That's my job. But if we can avoid all that, and I don't want to fight you, because I don't like wasting energy. It's a lose-lose, right?
Yep. And I point blank tell them, you know what? I don't micromanage. It drives me crazy. I can't micromanaging people. So just do your job. I don't care necessarily exactly how you do it, as long as you meet the requirements that are there and the job gets done.
Yep.
Go for it. Do it.
Yeah.
Whatever works for you.
I actually realized that for me, the only way that my company could have punished me was if they actually had promoted me. That would have been the only way. The Calgary crew is smart enough they offered to me a couple times, but they were smart enough to let me just do my thing, and the Vancouver crowd's like, no, there's no way in hell I'd do it. You guys don't know how to manage, and I certainly don't have the time to teach you. So, and that was, except for the AM. The AM doc when I worked there was really good. I think my favorite thing from there was, there is a moment there where we're working. He goes, "Can you go help her out?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, but I'm not going to yell at her. I'm not paid enough to yell at her." And then his response was, "Nor am I." And I'm like, "Excellent." Right. That was the boss, right? So just like it's one of those things where it's just like, that's a good manager, and he was a good manager, and it's such. But the thing is, you eliminate so much stress when you have that mentality with people. People are like, even when I've worked with other people for my own books. Okay, so I've said this on record. Florence Chan, my first illustrator, is one of the most professional people I've ever worked with. I learned more from professionalism from her than I've learned from anyone. Ellen Michelle, my editor for The Cloud Diver, beat me insidiously over with edits in The Cloud Diver. But she made me better, right? I learned so much. Like, I can learn so much from the people around me that why would I get in the way of them giving me ideas? They right? Yeah. It's just one of those things where it's just like, why would I get in the way of that? This is actually making me help me. This is help. Why would I want to stop help? They're trying to do it.
No kidding. I mean, that's what I love. All of my stuff is published through Three Furies Press right now.
Mm-hmm.
Small press. Love working with them because of that. It's that working relationship of, you know what? I send them something and it's like, oh boy, edits galore come back. But at the same time, it's like, no, they're doing this, makes me better. This helps. This makes things work better. And it's awesome.
Yes. Sometimes I try. Well, you learn there are some things you can battle. Right,
yep.
Like you learn there are some things you can battle, and those things are fun because sometimes it's like, okay, we want this, but what about this? Good point. So we want this, but what about this? Okay, do what you want. Yes, I win. Right, but sometimes
I've done some of the. Well, this is what you want. But I don't like how you get there, so how about we do it this way?
But that's the thing. It's a work, like again, and that helps them too, because they're like, you want to look like you're coachable somewhat too, and you have to be coachable. Like, even you go into the traditional markets, like whatever the traditional market looks like in a year, who the hell knows? But whatever the looks like in a year, right? All right.
Yep.
Some things aren't going to change, and here's one of them: are you coachable? You better be, because. They know they have sold books for in some cases nearly 100 years in some cases.
Yep.
They know what works for them. That doesn't mean they won't compromise with you. Like sometimes you'll be like, hey, listen, I'm not sure my character would do that. So where are we trying to go? That shows coachability, because what you're saying there is, I disagree with this, but I want to fix this so we're both happy. Yep. And then the publisher will go, okay, what I want is this. And I go, well, what about this? That works for me. Yes, right?
Exactly.
And that's what they want to see. It's not that, and when I have been working with professional people, it's not that, they're not editing you, they're not trying to tear your stuff apart to make you look bad. They're trying to do it because they want us to make this the best possible thing on the market, on this day, for their sales base, their market base. So they know what their market base wants, and they're going to cater to that, because you should, because it's good business. On the flip side, though, they're not unreasonable to say, well, you're not a robot. Number one. Number two, this is your thing. We want you as comfortable as possible with this, because if you're comfortable, you'll do this willingly, because they've learned this already a long time ago too. If I have to fight you to get this, right? I'm not right. There has to be a lot of money involved for me to fight you, right? Because otherwise I'm not going to want to do it. And even then I'm not going to want to do it. I just there's that point where the money might be worth it. God, that's a terrible spot when you're there, but yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, but I mean, publishers also realize that, without the authors, there's nothing to publish.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's a little bit of that give and take there, too, because, I mean, I've talked to some friends who, published once through somewhere and are like, you can't pay me enough to go back there again. It was awful, because of how edits got handled or how the process got handled. They're like, no, I'm not going back there. So, I mean, there's got to be that give and take in the industry.
Yes.
But it's got to be a give and take.
Yes.
On both sides.
That's right. Otherwise, it's not a relationship. It's not that, right? And also that means too. You gotta look at the fact that no author's words. Hey, listen. Sometimes my shit stinks. Sometimes. And I gotta live with the fact that my shit stinks. I don't want to admit that to the world too much. But every once in a while it does. And if I'm not willing to work on it, I'm sabotaging the product in my story at the end of the day. And if I'm a publisher and I'm looking at the fact that the guy is willing to, if the guy is willing to not, if he's not willing to change to get better, then we've hit his growth point. If this might be this will be the last book. Yeah, this is it. There is no coming back.
Yep. I mean, and that's because with Through Furious Press, I also do a lot of the graphic design stuff. I'm part of that team as well, and it's just one of those of if we aren't willing to learn, if we aren't willing to work, everything I do, I put up. Hey, what's your feedback? What's your thoughts? Things I think might work. All of a sudden, somebody's going, I don't like that. Okay, why? And get that feedback where sometimes it's not necessarily, changing what they thought should change.
Yep.
But in the understanding of why whatever it is isn't working, it's like, oh, here we go. Now we can fix what the problem really is. Because that's the other piece that makes me a little leery sometimes is, well, you have to do this to fix it.
Yes.
Wait a minute. There's more than one road to get there.
It's true, and that's the cool thing about it, and I love about indie press too is you get to figure out, you get to try all these different ways. Why isn't this tried? Sometimes at the end you're like, this is why this isn't tried. I got it.
Now I understand.
Yes.
Let's not do that again.
But hey, I look at it this way too, and this is the thing I look at. Chocolate chip cookies was an accident. Wasn't that a glorious accident?
It's an awesome accident.
Right? So if
Post-it notes too.
Yes, exactly. Those are the two coolest accidents ever. Although I think chocolate chip cookies is a better one. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Post-it notes do take a close second though.
Yes.
Because those suckers are handy.
So it's one of those situations where you recognize the greatness of your accidents and ride them out into the sunset.
Yeah.
But you do that making mistakes. I find out those are usually I find those things usually come from your mistakes. It's just being smart enough to realize what those mistakes are, and it's I've gotten hopefully wiser with that. We'll see as time goes on. I know I got many more mistakes left to make in this life, and I'm going to enjoy each and every one of them. So that's
Yep. Because I figure, you know what? You're not going to learn until you make mistakes.
You only live once. You might as well like I don't hate making mistakes. I hate regrets.
Yeah.
And that's just me. That's just how I look at things. It's how I see it. It's like, you know what? I can go. I literally have 4 regrets in my life. I'm gonna try to keep that number there. Right? I'm trying my best. One regret taught me how to not have regrets, and every once in a while, it's one slips through the cracks. But honestly, I still wouldn't go back and change. I wouldn't go back and change any of them, because honestly, I learned from each and everything I've done and not done, and I'm okay with making mistakes too, just simply because my mistakes taught me an awful lot about who I am as a person and who I am and who I'm not. And as long as I learn from my mistakes, it's okay to make them. It's when I don't.
Exactly.
It's when I don't learn that the universe tends to beat me a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as we learn from our mistakes, they're not really mistakes.
Yeah. Almost. Well, for the most.
They're learning opportunities.
Yes.
The mistakes are when we keep doing them.
Exactly.
And we haven't learned how to not do the same thing.
I realize this. I really enjoy talking with you. You're very chill, and that's awesome.
I have learned to be.
Yeah.
When you spend 10 years working with teenagers, mostly teenage boys, and most of the time the teenage boys were larger than I am, kind of go, you know what? You learn to roll with it.
You have to.
And you just go, and the thing is, one of the things I learned with it really is that, especially working with the kids, is that it's like, you know what? They're people.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, they're people. You just stay chill. You treat them like people, not teenagers, right? Or kids. They're people. You get a lot further.
That's true.
Work with them.
That's true with people in general.
Yeah.
That's actually true with people in general. It's like, if you treat someone like a person, they'll at least hear you out. I mean, if nothing else, they'll at least hear you out, right?
Yep. In general, that's going to work.
Yeah.
Most people, if you just give them that basic level of respect of just, you're a human being, no different than me, and let's just talk here. Let's figure this out together. Usually works.
Yeah. And it's amazing. You can get away. Once you give them that respect, you can actually almost say anything too. And that's an amazing thing, right? Most people do it in the wrong order, right? Most people do it in the wrong order. That's the problem, right? But you can confront someone on anything, provided you're giving them the respect. Like, listen, we need to talk about something. Oh, okay. Something's bothering you? Yeah. You mind? Then you're like, oh, yeah, no, let's talk. Okay, let's go. Let's roll. And you can, and then once the door is open, you can actually almost say anything you want, right? Almost, right? It's just, but it's getting to the point where people respect you enough to give you that platform, and that's relationship building essentially in a nutshell.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Yep. That really is the foundation of building a decent relationship with anybody.
Mm-hmm. I respect you. Cool. I respect you too. Okay. I gotta talk to you about the ugly stuff. Oh, okay. Let's do it. And then it's like,
Yep, because there's that basic level of trust established already of, you know what, I know you're not trying to be mean or hurt or whatever.
It's when, the biggest thing I think with a lot of people, the basic respect, and the second one is you have to be willing, and I want to be very careful how I word this. You have to be okay with confronting people about uncomfortable things. Actually, that's the right way of saying it. You have to be okay with confronting people about uncomfortable things, because when you don't do that, sooner or later, you will break trust.
Uh-huh.
And when you do that, it's almost impossible to get it back.
Uh-huh. Yep.
I learned that lesson. I've been the victim of that, and I've caused it. So it's just like I've learned that.
Wait a minute.
Yeah. Well, actually, I just learned you have to be able to embrace being the bad guy in a moment sometimes, right? Because in that moment, you're not being a bad person. You're just confronting some ugly things that need to be confronted. And if you're willing to do that, right, even though that might be an ugly discussion, there's a lot of respect there. The respect will be earned there. It's when you circumvent people. And it's when you circumvent trying to avoid that unpleasant things, or worse, have somebody else say it to you. That's not them. That's not you. That's when things go bad, very, very quickly.
Yep. And the other piece I think with some of this is that if we just learn to have those uncomfortable conversations, they won't be as uncomfortable.
Yep.
I mean, I think part of what's happened is that everybody has gotten so concerned about offending, upsetting, that, okay, there's some legit concern there, because if you're using inappropriate ways of being able to do it, that's a problem. But if we learn to have some just decent, I respect you and I care for you, and here's why I need to talk to you about, fill in the blank, they wouldn't be nearly as uncomfortable anymore.
No, it's nowhere near as bad. It's just an honest, okay, you need this is a problem. What can we do about it? And then you let them explain their side of the issue. Sometimes it's legit, And then right, no matter what it is, sometimes it's legit. And then you gotta, and then we gotta be adults about it, figure out something that works for everybody, right?
Yeah.
But that's.
Well, and even if it isn't legit from my point of view, that doesn't mean it's not legit from your point of view.
Yeah.
You know, just because I don't see it that way doesn't mean it's not true or it's not valuable or anything of the sort.
Exactly.
It's about, okay, here's the problem. You see it this way, I see it that way. Let's figure out how we're going to get along.
Yeah. Let's figure out how to make this work for both of us, so that neither of us, like, I'll let you live and I'll live and let live, and you just respect me here, and ultimately it's about respect. Yeah. Miss Stacy, I think we have an interview here. What do you think?
Cool.
Yeah. Did you have fun?
Cool. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I do these. I'm kind of good at these. Kind of. Yeah. So you should talk about your latest release, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. The latest release is Scars. It's book 2 in the Black Ops series. Think kind of a military, CIA, sci-fi, space opera kind of thing. Not real sure how to classify that. But it follows it's an elite military group, kind of that stereotypical Black Ops group. Space opera, planet hopping, things like that happening. And it really focuses around the ideas of you get an all-powerful government, things don't go real well.
Never.
On the surface, they might look good, but they don't necessarily last real well. And the soldiers involved are ones who, I'm doing this because I want to do what's right. Right? So Scars really focuses on a character by the name of Sean Russell. Kind of a fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants guy who really likes explosives and gets himself into some trouble because, again, it's at his heart, he's a character who is really focused on, I want to help people, I want to protect people, I can do these things that other people are going to shy away from. I will do them to protect them. His best friend is Eli Thorson, who is the main character of the first book, Tattoos, that came out last year. And the series is deliberately written this way, where each book follows a different character, so they're somewhat standalone, but when you put them all together, there's an overarching story that plays out across all of the books, despite the switches between characters. So Scars just came out earlier this year. Tattoos came out last year. Hopefully, if I can ever finish the ending, because it's an ending I really don't want to write, so I keep kind of shying away from it. I have to admit, the third book is, the goal is, it's been accepted by my publisher for next year. So the goal, it's got to be done next year, because I've already signed the contract on that. It's just, I really like that character, and I don't want to be mean to him. I mean, I'm already really mean to him, but this is really, really mean to him, and yeah.
Do you know what comes after? Did you know what comes after?
Yes, actually, I do know where it comes after from here, because I do have a couple short stories in this world that are out there as well. So I know what happens afterward. It's the middle. It's this piece that's like,
well, if it at some
this
point,
is painful.
At some point, man, you gotta let it go.
Oh, it'll happen, and I know what needs to happen. It's just a matter of getting it written. And I think part of why that book 3 in particular, because one of the underlying themes of a lot of the Black Ops world is some of the social stuff that I see going on all the time. I mean, being in addiction medicine, I see a lot of mental health issues, a lot of abuse, a lot of just really ugly things about people. So some of this is writing is my mental health dealing with the fact that I deal with people when they're in some of the worst positions they'll ever be in. And my job is to help them get out of those positions if I can. And it plays off of those pieces of, these are bad spots, these are bad things, and so really in tattoos, really the big thing is how do you choose between what you've sworn to do as your job and you've committed to and given your word to, and what you know is right, especially when those two things don't match. They're clashing. Do you follow that oath you took, or do you follow what's right? In Scars, it's about how do we keep going? How do we keep looking at, how do we keep carrying on when everything is coming at us, everything is coming against us, and how do we keep choosing to do what's right versus what's easy?
So they should read my blog at Coffee Over Suicide then, basically.
There's pieces of that in there. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the book next year is Nightmares, and that one is really, it deals with Eli and Sean's commanding officer, Major Devin Wade, and it's a lot of it for him is really around PTSD and what do you do when you've been the one who is the leader and who is the strong one and who is that person, and now you can't do that. You've sacrificed yourself to the point you have damaged yourself.
I'll tell you about.
And now what? Where do you go from here?
I'll tell you my other comic book idea. I think off the air because I think you'll dig it. But anyways, that sounds great. How can people find you?
You can find me at thisisnothitchhikersguide.com. That is my website, blog. Not a whole lot getting posted right there because I tend to spend most of my time at the hospital. And what little time I'm not at the hospital, I spend with my son right now. But you can find me there. You can find most of my social media there. You can also find me over at Three Furies Press, threefuriespress.com.
Fair enough. My conversation with Stacy Overby. Check out Tattoos. Like I said, she was my guest on Sunday, and I thought she killed it. And I think you'll love what she's done here in Tattoos. It's a great book. Stacy, thank you very much for coming on my show. You're welcome back anytime you'd like. All right, so normally I think I am pretty me-centric regardless of the episode, but I'm being a little bit more than normal. I changed the guest order. Lance Bond, my illustrator for the cover artist for The Cloud Diver, is my guest this Thursday. Definitely check it out. It's definitely a really, really cool experience getting him on here. We just talk about life and everything, and Lance is a really good guy. He's definitely one of the most talented people I know. Like, smart, brilliant, creative, and capable of doing so many amazing things. I have been very fortunate that I have been around good people in my life, and Lance is one of those guys. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. And from there, Saturday, there will be an early story time podcast. It'll be early Saturday. It'll be another me concluding Chapter 3 of The Cloud Diver. Krista Wallace is going to be my guest at the end of that. Krista kills it. Krista's amazing. I really like Krista as a person, and I really, really like her as a storyteller. She's an amazing performer. See her live. Like, whenever the opportunity comes again to when we start doing stage and theaters and plays, Krista's amazing. Like, really, really good at what she does, and she's a great writer. So definitely check her out. And then Sunday, it's incredible. I've said this before, and I'll go into detail of this on Thursday, and also just in general. Sophia continues to blow me away. I actually got an opportunity to listen to her new song, Endure, before anybody else did, and there's going to be a piece of it previewed to the audience. Incredible. Her range has improved so much since her last single. Smile is a really good song. Endure is a smarter song, more sophisticated song. It's a lot more somber than I expected when I heard it, but it makes sense considering the gravity of where people are at and kind of the resolve to go forward. There's a certain strength and maturity in this song that Sophia, I don't think, had when she was younger. And it's amazing that she's only 17 and able to do this. She's definitely a prodigy. And every time I get to work with her, it blows me away. And this Sunday, we're going to do it again. And the Zoom event's going to be in the link below. It'll be 7 p.m. Zoom. It'll also be on a YouTube channel. I'm going to announce that one YouTube channel Thursday. I'm going to be consulting with Sophia when we do our little early kind of rehearsal about it. This is not a normal interview. This is something I've been wanting to do with people in general. And I thank Sophia for giving me this opportunity because she's someone I believe in and someone I want to build up. And I want to do this for everybody, but for her in particular, this is a heck of for me, doing this with her, this is a heck of an opportunity, and I can't wait. So I got that on Sunday. My book launch is Saturday. Holy crap, I've done a lot, and I got more to come. That will do it for this episode, Just Joshing. If you want to support the podcast, you can do so a number of different ways. Subscribe to it. I'm on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. Pretty much any platform in podcasting you want to look me up for, I'm there. Look me up, subscribe, share it, tell your friends. That would be great. Buy my book, The Cloud Diver, available May 16th, courtesy on Amazon, soon to be available on other platforms as well. My YouTube channel is Joshua Pantellaresco. My Facebook page is Joshua Pantellaresco, author, podcaster. My Twitter and Instagram is @jpantellaresco. Read some of my stuff. I'm all over the web this week. I'm on catflannery.com, on nickelpopovic.com. I'm on, I'll be on Heidi Engel's site tomorrow. I'm doing all kinds of cool things this week, so definitely check me out. But regardless of what you do or don't do, thank you very much for listening. Stay inspired, and I'll be talking to you guys next time.
Josh. Shush.